Solitary peaks and mighty mountain ranges characterize this landscape, which is one of the most pristine in Europe. Bears, lynx and wolves still roam the undisturbed forests. The century-old birch trees stand dense and tall, a wild region with much to be discovered, which feels like it's somewhere lost in time. Romania lies in the southeast of Europe. In the northwest, between the Carpathian Mountains and the border to Hungary and the Ukraine, lie Crișana and Maramureș, still two of the least known regions in Romania. The Rodna Mountains National Park stretches along the eastern border of Maramureș. The peaks in the East Carpathian Mountains reach over 2,000 meters. Over half of the area is forested, and birch trees can be found in the midst of pine and fir. These alpine meadows are home to the groundhog. Their loud whistles are a warning signaling approaching danger, usually the golden eagle, which is also a threat to the mountain's goat antelope, which reside on the steep cliffs. There are more than 270 endangered species in Romania's second largest national park. This calls for daily patrols of the vast forests and hillsides. The region's goat antelope population has been monitored since 2004. There are only 130 of them here, and a close eye is being kept on their numbers. The mating season is in autumn, and the animals wander from the inaccessible peaks to the lowlands where they form herds. There, below the peak, is a goat, with a small kid born this year. I see. The rangers come almost every day to check whether the herds have started forming. It's only then that biologist Claudio Iusan and his team can start the annual population count. Most seem to still be at the top, or they've wandered into the valley. How many? 5, down there. At an angle of 45 degrees, 35 minutes and 59 seconds.
Se fac 2 evaluări pe an. Primăvara după fătare.
We count the animals twice a year. In the spring, we check how large the litters are, how many kids were born, and in autumn we check how many made it through the summer. Disease, as well as predators, are a threat.
Prădătorii care reglează populația.
The Rodna Mountains boast the highest biodiversity in the East Carpathians, with over 7,000 species being recorded, many of which are endemic or extremely rare. The park was declared a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve in 1980 to protect them. Only the rangers are permitted to enter certain areas of the forest. To ensure the species are protected, there are restrictions imposed on the few people who still live within the park, and animal populations are closely monitored. This is a good spot. We have a good view, Claudiu. Special cameras capture the animals' movements in the forest. Particular attention is paid to the larger carnivorous mammals. Their population may be stable, but the animals face a growing number of threats and challenges, such as their natural habitats being fractured and disturbances from man and machine. These cameras enable us to get an overview of the animals that live here. Where there are large predators, there should also be prey, so those who are hunted by carnivores. You can only have a healthy ecosystem if you have a stable food chain. The recordings are checked immediately. Even the most experienced rangers are always keen to see what's been captured on camera. A bear with black fur. Yes, his autumn coat. And a female lux. She's marking the tree with her urine, a great specimen. Yes, very nice. A good location. A lot of animals come through here. A good place for the cameras. Forests that are hundreds of years old and rolling hillsides characterize the landscape of Maramureș. This is an untamed region of Europe running along the Ukrainian border that harks back to an older, primeval time. The local trademark? Unique wooden churches. The region is also known as the Land of Wood. Wood is not only vital for the livelihood of the local people, but a natural resource that has shaped local culture, from wood carvings to unusual wooden architecture. Old customs and traditions are not only preserved in Maramureș, they are still a part of everyday life. This includes the Sunday church visits in traditional dress with hat and headscarf. The striking churches date from the 17th and 18th centuries. It was a Roman Catholic region as it fell under Austro-Hungarian rule. Therefore, the local Orthodox community were not allowed to build their churches out of a permanent building material such as stone. So, from floor tiles to roof tiles, they were built from wood and have lasted for centuries. 8 are UNESCO World Heritage Sites. This picturesque area also has a unique approach to death. In the village of Sopința, the life stories of the deceased are immortalized on bright blue crosses with naive painting and ironic verses. The shape of the cross, the pictures and the texts are decided upon by Dumitru Pop, the only crossmaker in Sopința. Family members have no say in the matter, but they can rest assured that their loved ones' vices and virtues will be described with a fond irony. This is the only place in the world where death is a laughing matter. The text on the crosses does not consider death as something heavy or tragic, but poetic and light-hearted. Like, death is coming, or death has crossed his path. This light-hearted cemetery received its first cross in 1935. Since then, over 1,000 have been added, telling the stories of children who have died too young, bon vivants with a thirst, and evil mothers-in-law that would have brought others to an early grave had they not been the first to go. Sometimes the crosses are sad and often have a morbid sense of humor or even moral advice for the living. They have been telling the village's story for the past 80 years. Just about. Leave it in the middle. Slowly let it down. Yes, like that. It's not only new crosses that are carved, but also old ones that are restored. Once all have been brought back to their former colourful glory, this small unknown village cemetery will also become a place of joy.
Dar aceste coloristici care te duce în jocul
The play of light on the crosses stops the cemetery visitors from going to a dark place, but treat death with a certain light-heartedness.
cu o degajare de suflet, nu te strânge.
The region of Crișana lies along the border to Hungary. Green hills roll across the landscape, with neatly trimmed meadows and countless fields that support small farming families who grow only what they need themselves. The area owes its name to the two rivers, Rapid Kraiș and Black Kraiș, which have carved deep gorges into the limestone of the Apusenilor mountain range. 1,500 caves, underground rivers and waterfalls make this one of the most important karst regions of Romania. Many of the caves are open to visitors, and tourists sometimes get lost or injured in the cave system. So the local speleologists are also rescue workers and have regular training days to prepare for every eventuality. The Meziad cave is best equipped for these training sessions, an El Dorado for Romania's 10,000 cave enthusiasts. There are countless caves across a very small space, some of which are still unexplored. Meziad is one of the largest and most interesting caves. 7 kilometers in length, only 1 kilometer is open to visitors, which is partly to preserve a large bat colony, a protected species which should not be disturbed. Stalactites, stalagmites, and enormous chambers up to 30 meters high are very impressive. Tudor Rus and his colleague find the perfect quiet spot for training. Only they have access to these more remote parts of the cave. This year we've explored new chambers and had one rescue training day. I know, Radu had the wrong gear. What do you want to practice today? The Meziad cave dates back to prehistory and is very interesting. When it was being prepared to be a visitor attraction in 2012, a 6,500-year-old skull was found near the cave entrance. Animal skeletons from the Ice Age were also found. Cave bears, cave lions, hyenas and other animals. The team has picked one of the most spectacular spots for their training. A hole in the rock 20 meters above the cave bottom. Speleologists are specialized in exploring new cave systems. This year we found a few chambers that were 50 meters high. A cave of this size will never be fully explored. We're always finding new halls. Green hills and deep valleys as far as the eye can see. This area is sparsely populated and its residents are mainly farmers. It's beginning to attract nature lovers from the cities, seeking a less hectic lifestyle and putting new projects in motion. These new residents see the area and its potential with different eyes to those who have always lived in the remote villages. This is Angela Sabo's 8th art festival, giving local farmers the opportunity to showcase their craftsmanship.
Foarte bine. Doamne ajută.
Doamne ajută.
Pot să vorbesc. Ioi, și asta e cu alt
That has a
model.
different pattern.
Yes, there are different patterns.
Oh, uite,
And
și pe
these are
ăsta
just
acum l-am
finished.
pus jos.
Da.
Să particip la târg pe 6.
You're coming to the festival?
Cu, nu știu, cu ce
What
o să
will you
vii,
show?
Dumitale? O
Eu
să
o
vii
să vin
cu...
cu
I'm taking
bățile de
these walking
căpătură.
sticks with the pyrography
Da,
Pirografare
and the clay
și
pipes.
cred că o să, și cu fluiere o să vin de ceramică.
trebuie să se
Can I
sune.
try? It sounds great.
Se schimbă.
The sound will change a little after they've been fired.
Se mai schimbă puțin.
Să îi facem pe oameni să înțeleagă că ceea
We
ce
had
au
to
ei
convince the
în
locals that the
familiile
things they were
lor
making were
este
actually of
extraordinar și
value.
ce pun ei pe masă trebuie să guste și
Everything they
alți oameni.
produce for their
Și
farm
munca
should be
lor trebuie
available
să
for
fie
other
doar o
people
muncă
to
de
try.
rutină care o fac în fiecare
This is
zi.
more than just daily work.
De aici am pornit și am ajuns să fim...
The beginning was tough,
acum foarte
but the
tare
festival is
căutați de
very
producători,
popular
de
now,
oameni
and people
care
are
prin
beginning to have more
încredere în ei au
self-confidence
dorința de a
and
încerca
want to
să
show their
facă
work
ceva
to other
vor,
people.
să se implice.
Culinary specialities and traditional craftsmanship, all local and handmade. There are no mass-produced items found here, and despite the bad weather, people have come from cities as far away as Cluj and Oradea. They come here to buy natural products straight from the supplier. Every year the number of sellers grows. New faces that are selling their wares for the first time.
Totul este o forță de energie care îi îndeamnă pe
The
oameni
energy motivates
să-și pună
people to
rotițele
want to do
necesare
something
și să înceapă
themselves,
să producă ceva
to be
sau să nu le
creative
fie
and to be
rușine cu ceea ce
confident enough
produc
to
și să
show
iasă
their
în
work.
față, pentru că tot ceea ce
Everything they
fac în
make at home
gospodăria
is
lor
so
este
good and so
extraordinar de
healthy,
bun, de sănătos
and
și
here
trebuie să-
we get to
trebuie să
enjoy
ne
it.
bucurăm și să profităm de aceste lucruri.
Wide valleys and a mild continental climate offer perfect conditions for local farming. Here, animals are still brought out to pasture every day. Goats and sheep, cows and pigs. Most of the field work is still done manually with the help of horse and ox carts. But time has not stood entirely still. The new methods are slowly but surely forcing out the old customs and practices. This village still makes its plum jam in clay pots. To do this, the women need 50 kilos of plums to be destoned by hand.
No sugar. The plums are very sweet. Our jam, the silvoitsa, doesn't need sugar. Marmalade and sweet jam do, but not the silvoitsa. The liquor doesn't need any either. You don't make liquor from these, just jam.
Mircea Groza considers himself a culinary archaeologist. He doesn't look for artifacts, but for old recipes. He wants to save the region's culinary DNA from extinction. Mircea has been visiting villages and peering into cooking pots for 40 years. The locals consider it an honor to be able to pass on their family recipes into such safe hands. Good that I found you. How long have you been here?
Since this morning.
May I join you? So, tell me what you're doing.
We love silvoitsa. We can't live without it.
But you're making a lot. What will you do with it?
Send it to our kids. Give it to our neighbours.
Do you like it?
Of course, the more the better.
How long have you had the big pot? It belonged to my parents.
În al doilea rând, aprofundând această cercetare,
The deeper I delved into the subject, the more I understood the value of the recipes and our culinary heritage. I knew we had to preserve it.
trebuie să rămână. Vreau să spun că ceea ce aduc eu în actualitate,
I rediscover long-lost recipes that are no longer cooked today, but could be incorporated into what is being cooked in other European countries.
în țări dezvoltate din punct de vedere gastronomic.
The pitted plums are placed into the big copper pot, for which the clay oven was especially made. As soon as the fire starts up, it has to be stirred continuously for the next 20 hours. 50 kilos of plums make only a few kilos of aromatic jam. Mircea is not only interested in the old recipes. He makes portraits of the people and describes the customs that go alongside the recipe. He has written books on the topic and maintains a regular blog.
Da. Păi, da.
Once it was so solid you could cut it with a knife.
O tăiam cu cuțitul. Bravo.
Bravo. That's silvoitsa.
Ia că vine.
There's a little tasting round to finish. Everyone knows the jam, and each family has their own special jam recipe.
Ce-ai pus? Presley pe ele?
O minunăție trebuie să fie asta. E mere?
Las-o aici. Las-o aici.
The plateaus of the Carpathians stretch for kilometers along western Romania. In the north, the peaks reach a modest 700 meters. Fields and heather steppes dominate the landscape. Millennia of rain and underground rivers have shaped this moon-like surface where only grass and moss grow. A view that stretches for kilometers without fences or electricity pylons. Ideal grazing country and a paradise for the few riders in the region. In Romania, horses are mainly considered to be work animals and are not always treated well. Some of these children have never stroked a horse before and know very little about the animals and their needs and characteristics. In a relaxed and fun atmosphere, Cătălin Șandor teaches the children how to treat the animals with love and respect. Who wants to ride first? You? Who? There's a lot of you. How will we do it? Who first? The smallest or the tallest? Hi, have you ridden before?
No.
Never? This is your first time?
Yes.
Great.
I've only sat on a pony once.
I'll show you how. Left hand here, right hand here. School children can come and spend time with the animals once a week. They feed, stroke and ride them if they want to. The contact with the horses is not only therapeutic, but encourages respectful interaction with the animals.
Ești foarte curajoasă. Pentru prima dată foarte, foarte curajoasă. Trebuie să mai vii la mine mai des. Mai vei? Da. Super.
A girl who visited me gave me the idea of working with children. I thought she wanted to get on the horse and ride it, but she only wanted to stroke it and see what it felt like. I realized that if I want to teach people about horses, I had to start with the children.
Jos, răbu, jos. Jos. Jos, jos, jos. Hai. Jos. Jos, jos. Hai, jos. Hai. Jos. Hai, jos. Hai. Bravo.
Horses are noble animals with special behavior. We can learn a lot from them. For example, how to love. We can really learn that from them. Is he your favorite? You like him a lot. Isn't he lovely?
Yes. Yes, I only trust him.
I consider horses as life partners. You can travel with them. Why not? Travel through the forests, the hills and the meadows in the region. I would like to be one of the first people to establish riding as a hobby or a sport in this region. The Apusenilor Mountains is the name given to the northern part of the Carpathians in western Romania. In the foothills lies the Sălaș region. Its capital is Zalo. It's a dwindling city with only 60,000 inhabitants. Nevertheless, Darius Prodan is set on returning to his hometown once he's completed his degree in theatre studies. One of the reasons is that there's neither a cinema nor a theatre in Zalo, something he considers a personal challenge. He wants to bring some culture to this capital. With the help of volunteers and thespian colleagues, he transformed his grandfather's garden into an open-air theatre 2 years ago. From July until October, they put together weekly performances where children and adults are welcome, free of charge. What started off as an experiment has found a solid audience base. We have 30 volunteers. It's a great opportunity for them to experience how to put together a play, stage design. For the residents, this is also unique. There's never been a theatre here before, let alone an open-air theatre in a location like this. I think it's a great thing for everyone in this city.
Mi se pare ceva extraordinar pentru oraș.
It's not a given that people will come to this little garden to watch a play. Many of the residents have never been to a theatre before. But with the right kind of show, enthusiasm and the courage to make mistakes, Darius Prodan has had a lot of success. There are already new ideas for a real theatre with its own ensemble and for international festivals with theatre groups from neighbouring countries. During the festival, the plays would only be performed at unusual locations, on rooftops and in cellars. We have a lot of ideas. I think theatre's possible anywhere. Further east, along the Hungarian border, lies Bior, the largest area in Crișana. Its countryside remains unspoiled. Most locals are subsistence farmers and live off the land. Corn and maize are harvested for sale. Fruits and vegetables are for their own use. Many of the young locals have left, but those who have stayed recognize the area's potential. They are trying to create new opportunities. In a small town in Bior, a new fashion collection is being designed, inspired by original dress. Romania is well known for the beauty and diversity of its traditional clothing. Styles, collars, stitching and colors vary from region to region. Everything, from cloth to embroidering, is handcrafted, just as it was 100 years ago. The skills are passed from generation to generation and immortalized in books. For fashion designer Ioana Dego, they are an invaluable resource for researching the traditions from her region.
That's why I went for the denim. I have never seen corners like that. I looked at the shirts for men and women very carefully, as I wanted to make sure they came from this area. I then chose the individual pieces. Shorts, skirts, and aprons. And I made a few sketches. I'm always guided by contemporary trends and opted for more comfortable, natural fabrics, like this denim cotton.
Ana Florea is helping with the collection. She's been committed to preserving the craft of traditional dress for years and had the idea for Anna's new fashion line. They are not the first to recognize the potential traditional dress holds for contemporary design. Fashion house Dior released a vest in the Bior style and sold it for 30,000 euros without making the design source public. Until an advertising agency from Bucharest released a campaign and drew global attention to the culture theft.
No one even thought of doing anything. Even if we had, we would never have had the money for it. No one thought of doing anything.
Lady Gada, vă rog să veniți în Bihor să vă alegeți hainele potrivite de aici de la noi, de la meșter popular.
The campaign made people aware of us. They know who we are now, and that we have at least one valuable piece of clothing. But there is a lot aside from the vest that is just as valuable. The vest has not only given us something to enjoy, but also reawakened an interest in our heritage.
Many local craftsmen are working for the collection. Anna and Ioana are on their way to a weaving studio. in a small village at the foot of the Apusenilor mountains. All pieces in the collection are handcrafted, and that is the goal, to bring together those who still master the old craftsmanship and ensure they can earn a living from it. Sorin Todica is the only male local weaver. For the collection, he makes bordering according to local custom. These are sewn onto shirt sleeves or cuffs.
Our project has also developed into other directions. It's not just about the vest, but as a result, we do have more opportunities. Like developing Ioana's collection, a great project.
For those visiting Maramureș, it feels like time has stood still. This area, running along the Ukrainian border, is considered the most traditional and beautiful in the country. Here, most people still live out their old practices and customs, like washing your wool in the vultuara, a wooden whirlpool. Hello, Mrs. Miranda.
Hello.
What are you doing?
I'm washing.
Can you wash these too?
Yes.
The deep wooden basins have a steady stream of fresh mountain water running into them and are hundreds of years old. Villagers used to have at least one basin each, which could be used for a small fee. This is the last basin still in use in the Cizbai Valley. Daniel often comes here to wash his clothes. Some people say these machines, we call them whirlpools, are from the time of the Dacu and were invented by them. They wore heavy clothing, which was not easy to wash by hand. They needed something more powerful. So they irrigated water from the river and built these whirlpools. People used to bring clothes, carpets, anything made from wool. Still today, people wash their woolens in basins like this. What are you measuring?
How much the material needs to shrink so I know how long it needs to spend in the water. Then it's your turn.
I'm on the waiting list?
Exactly.
How wide should it be?
About 60 centimeters. I measure best with my hands. I'm making a jacket, like this one from it.
How long was it in the water?
It takes about a day for the water to gather and the material to become dense. Throw in yours.
Look how big it is. Can it go in?
Throw it in. First, it needs to take on water.
The force of the water alone cleans the wool. No chemicals, no surplus energy needed. 100% organic and carbon neutral. A sustainable invention. The Cizbai Valley is known for its clay. Daniel Les knows where to find the deposits. He's a ceramic artist and only works with the local clay. This is the best clay. It contains iron oxide. When it's fired at 1,000 degrees, the sand, clay and iron come together and harden. If you tap a fired ceramic, it sounds like metal or glass. Daniel tries to live a lifestyle from 100 years ago. He wears traditional dress, carries his clay in traditional baskets, and goes on foot. He wants to be an example to others, encourage them to keep the customs and traditions alive. This clay is more than just a material. It holds a piece of Maramureș history. I need the clay, knowing that it comes from the soil where our ancestors are buried. I try to breathe life into every object. There's a part of my soul in every vessel, every figure. The local people and their uncomplicated way of life in this traditional region serve as inspiration for his work. He models people and scenarios he knows from childhood, which for him are the true depiction of the Maramureș. The Maramureș are a paradise that has not been discovered by many. It's a down-to-earth place, a modest place where people live by certain rules. People who do not seek wealth, but want to live a good life. For me, it's paradise. A paradise he wants to preserve for as long as possible. For several years, Daniel's been traveling the region, collecting old houses that have been left to decay. Beam for beam, he takes them back to his village and restores them to their original structure. The houses were built for the purpose of being taken down and reconstructed elsewhere. An ingenious technique that still seems to work after centuries. The appreciation is still lacking for the value of these historical houses. It takes a lot of time and energy before they're restored to their former glory. The houses don't really belong to me. I want them to continue telling their story. I don't want them to be lost and end up on the fire pile. I save them from fire and the criminals that come from France and Italy to make wooden flooring out of them. You cannot do something like that with the history of our country. The best-known peak of the Gutei mountain is the Cresta Cocoșului, the Rooster's Ridge. It towers 1,400 meters over the valley. The ragged rock is what remains of a volcanic crater which erupted 9 million years ago. It's a useful training ground for the local mountain rescue team. They are always on call, controlling the signposts for hiking trails and securing the climbing routes. The rock face is a popular spot for walkers and climbers. The mountain rescue team regularly scale the rock face themselves to make sure they know the mountain and stay in shape for potential rescue missions. We don't change shoes on a rescue mission, but in this weather, I prefer to wear my climbing shoes.
Voi folosi espadrilele de cățărat.
E cea mai mare zonă muntoasă din România, în primul rând.
The Maramureș Mountains are the largest in the country. We have a lot of difficult terrain in Romania, but the challenge here is the vast area.
Foarte vastă. În cazul în care avem rătăciți pierduți,
It can take up to 23 hours to get from one side to another to find someone in a search.
ca să putem să ajungem dintr-o parte în alta, să-i căutăm, să-i găsim.
I always stand directly underneath so I can see his route. The team train on rainy days like these, as accidents usually happen in adverse weather conditions. Further east, the densely wooded hills of the Maramureș Mountains stand closer together. This has been a logging area since the 18th century. The wood used to be transported to the sawmills in the valley by raft, and since 1932 by train. Mucănița, the valley train from Vișeu de Sus, is the last of its kind in Romania and a unique technical heritage. Can you hear me? Yes, I hear you. Have you left? Safety checks are regularly carried out on the narrow gauge railway. The technical team ride the route several times a day. In this especially made gang car, a Maramureș original. When we do the route in the gang car, we make sure all the maintenance work from yesterday has been done. Whether there's any problems or repairs needed, or obstacles that need to be cleared from the tracks so the wood and tourist transport runs smoothly. Carriages transporting wood are added at stops along the way. A quick maneuver demanding skilled reflexes. Release the brakes, we'll link the carriage. 10 carriages are brought down, 7 more are attached along the way, 17 altogether. We can bring a maximum of 20 to 25 carriages down into the valley. How many depends on the weight of the load and the braking distance. The heavy load is brought down into the valley 6 times a week. 5 brakemen, 1 technician and 2 drivers ensure that the cargo arrives safely. The team has been working since 5 o'clock in the morning without a proper break. Lunch happens on the go. It's a big responsibility. It's not like the normal locomotives where you just look ahead and know what to do. We deal with a lot of the unexpected. This curve is the responsibility of my colleague on the other side. 100 cubic meters are removed from the forest every day. Only diligent reforesting has ensured that there is still a dense woodland here after 300 years of timbering. Whilst the wood mafia have destroyed forests nearby, everything here is still working well. Nowadays, the old steam train is only used for tourists. Since 2005, the scenic route through the Vaza Valley is open once a day for tourists. The old train makes its way leisurely through the romantic Carpathian Valley, an area so unspoiled and wild, it's like nowhere else in Europe. A region where it's said that watches do not measure time, but infinity.